All right, so it's 6 o'clock and I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Isla Vista Community Services District Board. I'd like to announce the meeting is being recorded. And Jonathan, can you call the roll?
Director Brent?
Here.
Director Bertrand?
Here.
Director Flaherty?
Here.
Director Aguilar?
Here.
Director Freeman?
Here.
Director Poplar?
Here.
Director is absent.
All right, before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place, Anascoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. With that, we will move to the consent agenda. Any directors have items they'd like to pull?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Motion made by Bertrand, seconded by Topley. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda?
No.
All right, we'll bring it back to the board and we'll go to a roll call vote.
Director Brent?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Poplar?
Yeah.
Bertrand?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, now we're going to move to the public comment period. This is the time for any member of the public to speak on a matter that's not on today's agenda. If you'd like to speak on something off agenda, please hit the raise hand button on Zoom and we'll call on you.
No one's raised their hand.
All right, I'll close the public comment period and we're going to go to our first item, which is the introduction of Isla Vista Beautiful Program Manager, Jenna Norton.
All right, really excited to do this today. So Jenna just started a week ago with us. She's our new Isla Vista Beautiful Program Manager. She's taken off to a good start already in the last week, getting things going. So I'm excited to introduce her. She can talk a little bit about it.
Hi, everyone. I've lived in Isla Vista for the past 5 years. I attended UCSD, majoring in philosophy and sociology. I love Isla Vista. I'm very passionate about this place. I actually have had a dog here for the past 4 years. So whether I like it or not, every single day I am out here walking the streets. So before I even knew about this job, I was thinking about ways that we could make it more beautiful. After I graduated, I've been working as a project manager on some real estate remodels. And I feel like I can use the skills I learned there to hopefully manage a team for Isla Vista Beautiful. Ultimately, I would love to have some established and efficient procedures in place in order to tackle things such as, but absolutely not limited to, trash, graffiti, weeds, street lights, and I have many more ideas. I really want to partner with business owners and landlords, as well as speak to the residents themselves and see what ideas they have in terms of beautifying the community. And also really want to try and promote the See Click Fix app. I see it as a very useful tool in gathering data and figuring out where and what our issues are. So I really just want to create a greater culture of care and respect for Isla Vista. And I'm really excited. This past week has been really fun. So I can't wait to continue.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining the team. We're so happy to have you in this role. This is a program that I think is near and dear to all of our hearts, and making Isla Vista a little bit more beautiful is something that we all care a lot about. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Director Bertrand.
Thanks. Well, welcome to the team.
Thank you.
I know in this year we're pivoting with the direction of this program, and it sounds like with your experience, both living in Isla Vista as well as professionally, you're the perfect person for the job. So
Thank you.
Really excited to see how you can run with it and how we can support it. So welcome.
Thank you.
Any other comments from directors? Director Flaherty.
Hi, I'm sorry I can't be in person to meet you, but nice to meet you over Zoom. I'm really excited about the future of this program. I love this program, and from your experience, it just sounds like you're going to do such an amazing job. So I'm just so excited to see what Isla Vista Beautiful will be able to accomplish under your leadership. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and it's nice to meet you.
Thank you, Director Flaherty. I'll also just share, I love what you said about just being someone who walks around the community and notices things, because I think that philosophy of, hey, the people who live here can maybe have something really good to contribute is something that we all totally share. And it's really cool to see you bring that energy to this role. So thanks for being on board. I know that we may reach out or be in touch with you at some point.
Yeah, I would love that.
I think some of us are avid users of the C-Click-Fix app too. So thank you again, just for being in this role.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'd love any ideas and feedback. So.
Excellent. All right. Is there any public comment on this item?
No.
All right. Any last thoughts from the board? All right. Well, thanks again, Jenna, for being here. It's very nice to meet you, and good luck in every aspect of the role.
Thank you.
All right. Now we're going to move to the second item, which is the Isla Vista Safety Station Annual Report.
All right. So I will turn it over to Pam Gephardt, who's here with us today. And I'm not sure if Ariel was going to join us as well, but Pam, will turn it over to you to present the report.
Yeah, thank you. Ariel was going to try to come. He did have another meeting, so not sure if he was going to make it or not. I don't know if you can pull up the PowerPoint presentation. Are you able to share?
I'll do that.
Okay, thank you. I also brought a couple of my CSOs here. They're on Zoom with us. I believe Maya is here and maybe Val. They're two of my lead CSOs. So I just wanted to say thank you all for having me. Once again, my name is Pam Gebhardt, and I am the coordinator of the CSO program. And just thank you for giving me the opportunity to present our annual review. Next slide. The safety stations, as most of you know, are set up most Friday and Saturday nights during the school year from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. And they're still located at Little Acorn Park across from 7-Eleven and window to the Sea Park. These safety stations were originally set up to have a quicker response time for our safety escorts, giving students and community members in-person access to request a safety escort to a specific location. Since the beginning of our partnership with IVCSD, these safety escort stations have evolved not only to a safety station, but a safe place for all. Both sites are well lit and not only offer safety escorts, but free water, free cell phone charging stations, and a safe meeting location for groups and ride sharing. All safety stations are staffed by community service officers, also known as CSOs. Next slide. So CSOs, for those of you who don't know, are community service officers, and they are all unarmed civilian UCSB student employees. All CSOs complete yearly training, which includes 40 hours of administrative training. Administrative training is comprised of policies and procedures, radio, map, bicycle, on-the-job training. And in addition to the administrative training, CSOs also receive training from CAPS, CARE, the Clery Act, CSA, Green Dot, sexual harassment training, dispatch, and hostile intruder training. And they're all fingerprinted and have background checks. So, some of the challenges that we face this year were obviously still the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. This has had a big impact not only on the safety stations, but within our own CSO program. Coming back from the pandemic, we've had a lot of hiring challenges, as most everyone also is. But even with these challenges, we are able to staff both tents most nights throughout the school year. Cso safety is also another concern of ours. Just like we value the safety of all of our community members, we value our Cso safety as a top priority. A couple other challenges have been advertising for service that we provide and increasing our accessibility to all community members. Over the next few slides, you'll be seeing the statistics for the safety stations. Based on the board's request from last year, I altered our statistic tracking just a bit. So we're tracking more specific detailed statistics. So beginning with fall quarter, we operated from August 27th through November 20th of 2021. For this period, we had 26 nights to report, and we distributed water to 11,376 people, gave out 809 masks, and provided 63 safety escorts, and helped assist 132 others. Next slide. For winter quarter, this comprised of 20 nights of operation from January 7th through March 12th. During this time, we distributed water to 3,919 people, gave out 382 masks, had 8 community members using our cell phone charging equipment, and provided 75 safety escorts. Next slide. We finished our year with spring quarter, and that ran from April 1st through May 28th, and had 17 nights of operation. During this time period, we distributed water to 6,091 people, gave out 111 masks, and provided 40 safety escorts. Next slide. By looking at the graph, you can see our statistics, were very high in fall quarter, dropped a little bit in winter, which is always expected with the colder months, and increased back up a little bit during spring quarter. While we have hoped to have had more consistent numbers all year long, I did do a comparison from our numbers last year to this year, and I was really surprised by the positive changes. Last year, we had a total of 35 safety escorts throughout the whole year, and that number increased to 178 for this year. And our total contacts went from 2,965 last year to 23,045 this year, people coming to visit the safety station. So next slide. Some feedback that I've received from the CSOs are more hand warmers, which I know you guys were able to help us provide last year, which is great. Some minor first aid materials like Band-Aids. And then one thing that they have brought up, so currently we have CSOs start at the time that you guys want the stations open. So I would propose that maybe we can have them start a little bit earlier and close a little bit later, or not close, I'm sorry, clock out essentially a little bit later, just to account for pack up, arrival, setup, that kind of stuff. So these are a couple of their feedbacks. It just takes them a while to get set up at the different stations, and this is what a lot of them recommended. Next slide. So for the safety stations moving forward, we would like to focus our efforts on partnering with UCSB and community organizations with the intent on providing equal escort opportunities to all. Another area we would like to focus on is our advertising for all of our services. And something new this year that has just been released is the new UCOP Community Safety Plan. And with that, there is going to be almost a rebranding of CSO. So in that new Community Safety Plan, they're requiring all not sworn officers to make changes to uniforms, names, and some other various changes. So we would need to remove officer from all of the titles, any stars, badges, colors of uniforms, that kind of thing. So that's going to be further, obviously, as we learn more, we will be discussing with you guys more, just because I believe our logo is going to have to change. So more changes to come for the future. Next slide. So thank you again. And I thank the IVCSD board for having me and community members for giving me the time to report our safety station annual review. If anybody has any questions for myself or the CSOs who are here, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you so much, Pam, for the presentation. I'll open it up to our board for any questions. Director Freeman.
How many people do we currently have stationed at a time at each safety station?
We have 5, or actually a total of 10. We have 1 lead, 1 person working dispatch, and then actually 4 safety attendants at each station.
And when the escorts occur, are
Yes.
those coming from the tents then?
Yes.
Thank you for that question. I have a quick question. Can you share the year-over-year stats again?
Sure. Let me see here. Okay, so I just kind of got a couple different ones. So our safety escorts last year were, let's see, a total of 35, which, coming back from the pandemic, that was a little to be expected. This year, that number increased to 178 throughout the whole year. And then our total contacts, which is kind of comprised of all of the stats for the year, went from 2,965 last year to 23,045 this year. So a lot of people coming up to the tents.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. I just really wanted to highlight it because that is a really big increase in the number of people that's being served by this program, and I think is a great indication. And I very much appreciate the collection of all of this data. I'm sure that there was some tediousness involved in the workflow to make sure that it was gathered and collected, and thanks to our CSOs for participating in that. But I think that that really helps paint such a good picture of the program and helps us be able to make better decisions about it. So that's a really big deal. Thanks for sharing.
Yes, of course.
Director Bertrand.
Yes, good evening, Pam. Nice to see you. I think I last saw you at graduation, which really glad to see you there. Again, I'm really proud of this program, thankful for the great work that you all are doing. One question I have tonight is, in the past, we've been interested in expanding to a 3rd location. If we were to move in that direction this year, do you think that you would be able to fill the positions required to expand?
I believe so. We have a good amount of staff coming into the fall, and we're looking to hire at least about 45 more CSOs fall quarter. So it might be slow to start with that 3rd location, but for sure by winter quarter, we could have all 3 stations fully staffed.
That's great to hear. And I'll just say for my colleagues, that's definitely a top priority of mine. I really want to see that expansion because it has been so positive and impactful where we have had these locations. And I know a number of us have been able to spend time with CSOs, often ad hoc. We will take you up on the offer to do formal visits, but I oftentimes will just stop by when I'm walking by and have some time. And it's great to see the level of service that the CSOs provide. My heart warms when I see groups of folks walk over to get water or other help. And it's become just something that people depend on, which is great to see. As you acknowledged in your opening comments, it has gone in a different direction than when we first launched, where we were really focused on the escort aspect, but now it's much more of a holistic service, meeting many different needs. So I'm really excited for where we go in this next year. One additional question I have about the data provided, for each of the reports, you have a section that says reporting. And is that like if someone came up to the CSO station with a safety issue?
Yes, exactly. So if they wanted to maybe report a fight or somebody intoxicated or somebody needing medical attention, those are what the reporting is classified as.
Got it. Thank you. That's good to know. And I know in the past we've heard, I believe from Lieutenant Millard, about different very serious safety concerns that have come up, and CSOs have been helpful with providing critical information. There have been times where students or community members weren't comfortable going directly to law enforcement officers, but they were comfortable going to the CSOs. And I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I'll just put out there, I know you have some CSOs on the line. If anyone wants to share just what your most meaningful experience with this program has been, I know we'd love to hear it. But you can also email us that too, whatever works.
Maya or Val?
Sorry, can you repeat that again? I want to make sure I fully understand the question.
Yeah, thank you. If you would like to share just what your most meaningful or favorite experience with this program has been, we'd love to hear. Anything you want to tell us.
I think my favorite experience has been that since I am a student at UCSB, but also working as a CSO, I get to learn more about my community and meet more people during shift that I then like see in my classes or on campus, and I can build meaningful connections with those people. So it's really nice being out there and feeling like I'm actively making a difference while I'm on shift, but it's also like helping benefit my personal life when I'm just being a regular student. So I think the connections with other people that I build are like the most meaningful part, and I've really like impacted my time here.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I think you touched on something earlier from a comment I made about, originally these stations were set up for escorts, but just kind of like what Maya said, they've evolved into so much more. And I do think even, like I mentioned with the community safety plan, continuing to change the way, CSOs look and branding and that kind of stuff, I think that will just further the community just realizing that they are not officers. These are student employees who are, like Maya said, in classes with them and, in IV with them. So.
Totally. Thank you.
Director Freeman.
I definitely want to say that I'm happy to hear about that new branding. That's something that we've been asking for ever since we started this program, is to make the officers, the officers look less like officers because they're not sworn officers. And so having them actually now not look like the officers in the same way is actually really great to hear.
Yes.
A little sad though, that had to come from such top down, but.
Director Topliff.
Thank you for the report. And I don't know too much about it. I don't live in Isla Vista, but I'm surprised that the escort has become really a nominal part of the service. And it occurs to me that what you're providing in a lot of ways is psychological safety, that, it's like an oasis where people can feel like, there's something tangible there for them. And maybe they don't really need an escort because, they've had that feeling of being taken care of by their community as a part of what happens there. And I'm just wondering, if somebody wasn't physically near you, are they able to call you to say, I'm nervous or something's happening, or do they have to actually come to you to get any services?
No, we have a local phone number that's connected to our dispatch center at the police department at UCSB. And we have CSOs who are not only working at the safety station, but working other shifts at night as well. And so they will meet anybody either on UCSB campus or throughout the Isla Vista community. Any members of the community, not just students. So.
That's very nice. And what is the typical kind of response time to calls like that?
Depending on locations and staff, usually it's under 15 minutes
That's great.
at the very most. If it's somewhere where they have to travel to, across campus from where they're at.
Thank you.
Any other questions from our board? Well, I'll also share, I want to thank you and especially all of the CSOs for everything that you're doing at all the times. But I really want to highlight, there was a period of time very recently when our community was very scared because of some of the safety challenges that we were having with news of attempted kidnappings. And the CSOs really stepped up to help people during that time. I think we can see it here borne out in the statistics where there's an increase in dispatched CSOs, giving escorts during the winter quarter. But I know just from being in the community and walking around and hearing feedback from so many residents, the other side of that's not just the number, which is the safety that people were able to feel by having access to that service. It's just, I think it's a really important reminder that the escorts they are very important of this part of this program, and can really make a difference in people being able to feel like they live in a safe community. So just a big thank you to all the CSOs for really stepping up during that time period.
Yeah, and the numbers that we did report for winter quarter, especially during that time period, obviously we're only the ones that we're focusing on the safety station. During that week, we had hundreds of safety escorts that the CSOs provided. So definitely just an invaluable service to the community.
Absolutely. Well, and that's good context to hear as well, that there's even more. I know from speaking with some of the CSOs that they were very busy during that time period, frankly. So I'm not surprised to hear that there were even more. But just a big thank you to everyone, and thank you to you as well, Pam, because I know that you were working, not just with the CSOs, but with other campus groups that were to make sure that they were able to have their needs met when they were requesting CSOs. And it was never more important than in that moment. So thank you. All right, any other questions or comments from the board? I have a quick question for staff, for Jonathan. Yeah. So I know you mentioned at past meetings that we're still sort of trying to get worked out with IVRPD, the third location in that agreement. Has there been any update to that since we last spoke?
There's no update, but we've just been thinking of finding a new third location that's not on Parks land, and just looking to do that in the fall. So,
got it. Well, that's good to hear that there are plans in the works, because I think I share with Director Bertrand just the desire to get a third location up and running, and whether it's in the parks or whether it's somewhere else, I think that will be really vital. So
yeah, I was thinking to ask one of the faith-based groups like St. Mark's or Hillel, which is right where we wanted it.
Well, that's great. I think that those could be excellent partnerships.
And then
any other questions? Go ahead, Pam. Sorry.
I was just going to say once again, I know we've kind of tweaked our statistics from last year, just adding in different things. But if there is something else that you guys would like to see next year, for us to collect data on, please let me know. I can adjust these at any time. If these aren't what you guys are looking for, if you're looking for something else, just let me know and we can change that very easily.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, then with that, I think we'll close the presentation. Thank you again, Pam, and thank you to the CSOs for being on the call and sharing your experiences as well. Before I do that, what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to go to public comment. If anyone has public comment, please hit the raise hand button. Okay, so we'll close public comment. Thank you again, Pam, for the presentation.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, we are going to move to our next item. Do we have we're running a little bit ahead of schedule. Do we have the lieutenant on the call with us? Excellent. We're going to move to the Isla Vista Foot Patrol Open Container Campaign presentation. And so we'll turn it over to Lieutenant Morris to speak about that.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry, I'm joining you from San Diego, so I apologize for the lighting and the amazing background that I have here. I'm going to share my screen with you guys so I can pop something up. All right. I think you guys can see that. All right. So thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate seeing all of you. One of the biggest things, as you guys all know, for Isla Vista is we get a whole new influx of students every year, and that produces some challenges for us at the Sheriff's Office and for UCPD, where we are working with a brand new slate of students and teaching them all the rules and the culture and the laws that apply to Isla Vista. And obviously one of the biggest ones that is violated is open container and alcohol usage. And across the country, many small communities similar to Isla Vista have started similar campaigns of a no open container community. And so this is kind of an idea that we've been working with over the past year, and we're ready to launch it in Isla Vista. And I think it will be quite effective. And so first and foremost, it will start with a sign, as you guys see here. The sign will be very similar to the size of the sign that was posted throughout Isla Vista for COVID-related issues. It's about 6 by 10 inches. It doesn't need to be a very big sign due to it's not made for vehicle traffic. It's made for pedestrian traffic. So it won't be necessarily an eyesore. Our goal is to work with county roads to place the sign at these 4 locations. So basically the main arteries headed down to Isla Vista where students would most likely see them. I'll also mention in combination with this, County Parks is getting ready to post no alcohol signs on the beach entrances as well, due to our stretch of beach is no alcohol and it's commonly violated. And I've been down there the past several weeks with the warm weather, and there's beer bottles and cans strewed throughout the beach. So I think it's good timing for that as well. In combination with the signage, we're going to be doing a social media campaign that will expand during our fall orientation period, which is pretty much from the time the students come back in September through Halloween. And we will be using the hashtag Isla Vista Foot Patrol and hopefully getting students on board that and pushing out that messaging in combination with some ads in the Daily Nexus and other local newspapers that students may be viewing. Lastly, with part of this campaign, we will be handing out notices as an education part of this, where when we see someone with the open container or maybe music violations early on in the fall orientation period, instead of issuing a citation, we'll provide a pamphlet, which is about citation size, to the students. This is a rough copy of it. I believe you guys all have received or should have a copy of it. Some of this will be changed. Like I said, this is a working copy, and I'm happy to take any suggestions from the panel that you think would be on there, but I do want to see more resources available. And I think Pam's still on here. Maybe she got off, but we do have the CSO number also on here for students to refer to if need be. So the point of this would be if a deputy was out walking around mainly on DP, contacted a student that had an open container, and we'd have them pour it out, and we would provide them with this information and give them a little bit of an education notice of the rules in lieu of giving them a citation. We will continue this throughout the year. This isn't only going to be during the fall orientation period. We will hit this piece with the education very hard after the start of each quarter of UC Santa Barbara, and it will be ongoing. So I'm going to pause this piece because I got a second piece mainly around restorative justice. But before we go there, I wanted to answer any questions or get any comments about this first piece of the program.
Any questions or comments from the board right now? Director Bertrand?
Thank you. Good evening, Lieutenant Morris. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm assuming UCPD will also follow the same protocol, like this is in coordination between your two agencies for the fall?
Yes, sir.
Good to know. And then the only other thing I want to mention just at the beginning here is one of the concerns we've heard in the community and something we've seen is oftentimes officers or deputies will go up to people who just have water bottles or soda. I've been stopped for having tea. My friends have been stopped when they don't even have any bottle. I can totally see why law enforcement would contact someone who has an actual open container. But I hope that when we launch into this next step and they're doing proactive focus on this, we're not stopping people who just have soft drinks. And
Correct.
A lot of times in those situations, the deputies genuinely think that it might be an open container. But if it's an issue where you don't really know, I feel like for something so minor, it's better just not to engage.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I will mention during 4th of July weekend, students were carrying around jugs of what they wrote on the side of it was actually a milk container with a red liquid inside of it, and on the side it said fruit punch. We weren't stopping those people at first, but we then later learned that they were filled with hard alcohol. So the students are trying to conceal their alcohol away from the regular cans and bottles and red cups, which we traditionally saw back in the early 2000s. And so there is a balance. We have, with that all said, been educating the deputies of use your discretion and be cautious about how you're contacting. And if you do contact them, obviously be respectful. Do not necessarily make it a detainment, but more of a consensual contact and go from there. So the deputies should be going out, maybe engaging the person, educating them on the rules and saying, hey, there is no open containers. Make sure you're not having any alcohol in any of your bottles, whether that's a Coke bottle with Coke and rum in it or whatever it may be. But more of a consensual contact rather than a detainment is what we're pushing deputies to do.
Thank you. That's helpful. And like I said, I really appreciate the direction you all are going with this. I will say though, in those moments where you are contacted and you're doing nothing wrong, it really doesn't feel good, especially if you're alone at night, you're contacted by people who are armed and are confronting you over something which isn't happening, but even if it was, it's still so minor. And I'll lastly mention another concerning thing I've seen is in addition to folks just being stopped, I've also seen times where law enforcement officers have kind of ran after people and like tapped them on behind the shoulder. And in those situations too, the person was doing nothing wrong. Ultimately, the law enforcement officer walked away. No citation was issued, but it's still at what cost are we making these contacts? So I think you see where I'm going with this, and I do appreciate the direction that you all are moving.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Director Bertrand. Director Topliff.
Thank you. I'm not really very familiar with open container ordinances, and I'm wondering, is this unique to Isla Vista, or is this something that is in communities throughout the county?
Yeah, so no open containers basically applies to almost every community except parts of Las Vegas and parts of Miami. For the most part, other than that, open containers are not allowed. 36-3, which is our county ordinance here in Santa Barbara, does apply to all unincorporated areas of Santa Barbara County. Santa Maria City, Lompoc City, Santa Barbara City, they all have their own local ordinances as well. but in Isla Vista, this is the most violated ordinance, or most commonly violated ordinance.
And then, I mean, it seems to me in general that it's intended to be a way to control rowdy, drunken, antisocial behavior in our communities. That's just something that's kind of an easy physical symbol of it, but that in most communities, there's not really a focus on it unless there's a problem with the behavior of the people or person. And so it seems to me like in Isla Vista, maybe we take it a little bit more literally than we do other places. And I just wonder if it maybe isn't a little bit more than is necessary and creates an environment that feels punitive or unnecessarily restrictive.
I understand what you're saying, and most communities throughout the county do not have the same type of population that we do here in Isla Vista. And so I totally, completely understand. And I'm sure that everybody on this call has been there at one point in time in their life. But students, we know students are here, they're away from mom and dad, some of them for the very first time ever. We know that they're going to experiment with alcohol and other things, and they're here to have a good time, coupled with their learning opportunities. And so we're not here to suppress that behavior. We're not here to necessarily stop that behavior, because we know it's going to happen and we know that we're not going to be able to do anything about it. However, we do want to ensure that it is being done safely. And so if we go back into time, not only in our community, but other communities, and we see young people using excessive amounts of alcohol, it does lead to other things. So in our community, we often have seen in the past, Cliff Falls is a problem with intoxicated students. And those are always very traumatizing because they lead to very traumatic injuries and or death. We're starting to see a lot of bird scooter or lime scooter accidents that are causing students to have traumatic brain injuries, and they're no longer being able to attend UCSB or Santa Barbara City College. And we've seen rapes and other violent crimes, stabbings and robberies that occur throughout the year with this. So we're not trying to stop it. We're just trying to control a little bit of it and not let it get out of control. Obviously, I don't want to take it to the point where we are causing complete discontent and deconnection from the community, but we want to be out there educating with enforcement if need be. And so that's really the point of this, is we want to let the students know, hey, you can be out here, you can go to your house parties, but when you're going from house to house, the open containers or you can't bring an open container with you. And that's the goal and hope of this program.
Thank you.
Director Freeman.
I guess the thing that I'm still not understanding is that all of the things that are being listed as the important downside that we're trying to limit are things that are side effects of people drinking, not necessarily of people transporting open containers, which I think a lot of people are transporting open containers at various points, nor is it necessarily from people who are specifically drinking outside versus people who are drinking inside. I mean, a lot of the people who are currently listed as having been in these dangerous situations are people who were drinking heavily inside of some house party right before and are now extremely intoxicated on the streets. And I've seen, I even have weirdly documented situations when I was trying to do the cool video photography of Deltopia that I was never able to release because of the sheer number of people who were really having the worst day of their entire life. And so I guess I'm still not really understanding what the goal of this particular, like, let's focus on this, let's crack down on this particular issue is. Where I guess what people have been coming to you asking that this be the thing that's enforced. I mean, whether I agree with some of the things people want to be enforced or not, I am constantly being contacted by people who want things enforced, laws that are currently on the books. I have never heard of somebody coming to me asking for this law to be enforced. So I'm curious where this is coming from and why this is your focus.
That's a great question. So I hear from multiple different angles. One of them that I hear most commonly is from the board of supervisors. They do not like when there's cliff falls. They do not like when there's everything that I mentioned. I understand that is not necessarily a direct relation, because I do agree with you. There are people that are in the houses drinking and they're coming out onto the street and everything. But this is our one way to kind of curb and educate some of the alcohol problems that we're having. Taking someone and arresting someone and putting them in jail for public intoxication is always an option too, but this gives us an opportunity to educate. This gives us an opportunity to build relationships with the community instead of issuing them a citation or being more aggressive in kind of the examples that were given earlier of the contacts with the students. And so coupled with that, every time we have a cliff fall, every time we have a traumatic incident with a student who either is a victim of someone getting hit by a bird scooter, or they fell off a bird scooter because they're drinking, the parents are constantly contacting me and begging us to help curb this alcohol problem. I totally get what you're saying, Director. This is only a piece of it. It's not the bigger picture necessarily, but this is one step in my mind for us to educate and build relationships with the student population that has for the past few years been fractured. And I do believe in the program. I do think it will work.
I do want to underscore that I can totally picture people coming and saying that they want something done about, quote, the alcohol problem in the area. But that does not seem to me to be equivalent to cracking down specifically on the narrow issue of people transporting open containers and then running into situations that Director Bertrand has been talking about, involving carrying around random containers that having to get stopped by police and then ending up with these incredibly stressful situations that I feel like they didn't really deserve. And so while I don't want to say I appreciate it, because I don't appreciate it. I don't want to see that I see it, because I don't see it. I hear what you're saying with regards to this is the one thing that you feel you can do, and so you want to do it. But the at what cost on that, to me, does not seem to be appropriate. But
I feel like and maybe I'm misunderstanding you, Director. I feel like we're talking about two different things. So I'm talking about the education piece and not necessarily doing the enforcement. And I feel like you're talking about the enforcement. I could be wrong. But that's what we're trying to prevent. So we're trying to educate so that there is not that enforcement piece necessarily down the road. Everybody understands, and we're not having to do that type of enforcement. And am I misunderstanding you, or am we kind of aligned?
no, what I was talking about were the approaches by officers, not the potential of much more escalated enforcement. Certainly, I'm against much more escalated enforcement, but I was even drawing like feeling that the at what cost already comes from having somebody who is an armed officer coming up to you, stopping you, interrogating you over things that you're carrying. That bothers me from the perspective of, if it is merely I don't know what else we can do, this is a little piece of the problem, it's something that we can concentrate on, when it does not seem to be the direct anyone is asking for. But
I understand. Thank you.
Director Aguilar.
So are we discussing right now this green and yellow sheet? This is the example or the draft sheet that you would share with residents?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On the mostly gold side, where it talks about being a responsible host, could you give us a little bit more detail about the first bullet about registering your party and what that process is like, and how like that type of proactive from the citizen side of the contact, how that works?
Yes. So this register your party has been in effect, I believe, since 2019. So just before COVID hit. And you can go on our website. There's a link at the bottom of the page. You can click on it and fill out basically like a Google form, which provides your information. And the goal of the program and how it's described on the website is so if we do get a music violation call, mainly, we can call you and say, hey, your neighbors are calling, they're complaining about your music. Can you turn the music down? And that's the goal of the program, instead of, in kind of what you guys are talking about, sending deputies out there to contact them and have to go that route. So instead, it could be over phone, and we can get some compliance and turn the music down. So we tend to get the responsible, if you will, students that go along with this register your party program. But a lot of the DP parties that are very common, the common party houses on Del Playa, don't necessarily do this. But our goal would be that we can able to just make a phone call instead of sending deputies to the house.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to add one thing, because I've got a lot of thoughts on the education campaign in general. But before I forget, I want to emphasize something that Director Bertrand was bringing up just about, I think, kind of the enforcement apparatus in general that we see around open containers. And I just want to remind everyone that for a lot of people that are carrying water bottles, they're carrying water bottles of water, and they're doing that because that is the right thing to do to stay healthy if you are taking drugs or doing alcohol. And I empathize a lot with people that are in that situation that feel like they're doing everything right, yet they're being stopped and they're having an officer open up their beverage, smell it, and give it back to them after they haven't, caught them per se. That can feel really not good. And so I hear my colleagues, when I think it's been mentioned a couple of times, like, at what cost? At what cost does this interaction happen? Does that help us build a better relationship, or does it not? So I do really hope that a component of this will not increase that amount of interactions that are being had, because I have other thoughts about what you were trying to do here, Lieutenant, with this specific education component of this. I think giving people the education rather than going straight to the enforcement is actually exactly the right approach that we should be taking. And I think it's the right thing to do. I know that we've been asking a lot of questions, and it might behoove us to let you finish your presentation before we give some more feedback on the education component piece of it. Because I think you might have a little bit more to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. All right. So one thing that we started a few years ago was the Restorative Justice program, and it's been working very well in Isla Vista, but it has been limited to only a few violations. An open container is one of those violations. 40-2, which is the noise ordinance, is also one of those violations. So we're looking at adding new charges to our existing program. I've been working with the new district attorney-elect on thoughts. They recently, as some of you may know, started a restorative justice program for the city of Goleta, which for all intents and purposes is a completely different program than what we have here in Isla Vista. So to simplify, what we're going to do is we're going to add all infractions and misdemeanors that are violated in Isla Vista at the discretion of the deputy and based on the totality of the circumstances of the investigation, except those violations that include a victim. So that would be most commonly a fight or a theft, a vandalism, and also a resisting arrest will not be added to that. So all other charges that would include drug charges, that would include urinating in public, that would include 415 yelling or even 415 music. If we went to that route, we could issue a restorative justice notification instead of issuing a criminal citation. And I think this is a big step for us in Isla Vista. The deputies really have bought off on the restorative justice program. They think that it works. For the amount of people that we have run through the restorative justice program, we've only seen one of them get issued a criminal citation further on down the road for a similar violation. So I do think Community Resource Deputy Justin Schroeder is doing an excellent job with this program. He runs a wonderful civics class component of this program. And I do believe that the students that do participate in the program do really enjoy it. I will mention one other one that will be added to this is minor possession. So that is often violated during the early part of the year with the new freshmen that come in. And so giving them the option to go through the restorative justice program rather than get a criminal citation as they start their new adventure in life in Isla Vista will be a very good step. And so that concludes my presentation. So any further questions, I think we'll be good to go.
Thanks for sharing that, Lieutenant. So we kind of cut you off in the middle of the presentation, but thanks for bearing with us. Any other questions? I think I stopped it while we had some more up here.
I just had a comment, I guess, about education. And I wonder if we're doing any education around, the cliffs being a no sobriety zone or a, no intoxication zone, or also any education about, littering the beach with cans and bottles.
So the sheriff's office is not. I've been trying to work with other different entities and groups in Isla Vista to get some of that messaging out, but some of those are non-law enforcement related issues. We are, for a broader topic, working on the balcony and cliffside safety issue with county fire and the various landlords that have houses along the cliff line. But that's going to be a long road ahead of us to get a lot of compliance with that. But again, that's not necessarily a law enforcement issue. That's just something that that my office is trying to facilitate so we can prevent some of those cliff falls. County Parks is working on trying to figure out how to do that for the beaches. And I know the AS and other programs are actively working to ensure beach cleanups and education when it comes to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just ask you then, your restorative justice program, people get diverted into some kind of training or education? Is that how that works?
Yes. So when they receive, so they essentially get a citation, but it says restorative justice on it instead of a court date. And they are given a pamphlet that's similar in size to a citation with all the information on it, which instructs them to contact Isla Vista Foot Patrol and schedule for one of the classes. We hold classes regularly, different days of the week to accommodate students' schedule, and they're required to attend the class, which is what I describe basically a basic civics class, normally surrounding alcohol type violations. And then they do need to do a small bit of community service after the class. Once they complete both those, then their restorative justice citation is essentially removed and it's not forwarded to the district attorney for prosecution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Director Bertrand?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I really appreciate this presentation, and I think overall this is a big win, the direction you're moving in, both with prioritizing education over enforcement with open containers. I mean, obviously I have my concerns about what over-education could look like, and it sounds like you'll take those into account, which I appreciate. And as far as the restorative justice diversion, that's fantastic to hear. And I think this will really improve the experience for Isla Vista residents and make our community safer. Lastly, I'll just mention, like, we heard the notion of consensual stops earlier, and I think it's super important that just in general, when law enforcement is interacting with the community, that it's understood that when community members are stopped, especially at night, if they're alone and they're confronted by two armed officers, there's no such thing as a consensual stop. It doesn't feel that way for the community member. It doesn't feel like, do I have an option to engage or not? And I recognize that there are many times that law enforcement officers make that contact because they have to. But I think there is a responsibility to use that discretion, which we've heard in this presentation. And I think that's a responsibility that has to be taken really seriously, just because for the times that that it's not necessary. It can create a very unsafe situation. And ultimately, I fear it can get in the way of people reaching out to law enforcement when they need help. And that's the last thing we want to see. That being said, over the last 9 years I've been here, this is a huge shift forward with the direction you're going. And this is a big change in the culture. So I appreciate it and look forward to our continued work together.
Thank you. And I'd actually, if I can take a moment, I'll give you the board an example. And I was talking to Spencer about this earlier. My team and I worked at Fiesta this year, and it was a very different experience for me. And I think it does relate to Isla Vista. And in years past at Fiesta, there was a lot of fights, a lot of violent crimes that were occurring, and we did not have that this year whatsoever. And it was a very friendly group. And I spent a lot of time throughout the weekend taking photos with people. I spent a lot of time giving fist bumps and shaking hands with people, and a lot of community engagement. So I do understand what you're saying, Director, and I do know that what you're saying is fact and it is out there. But I do truly believe in the work that we do. I do truly believe that we can build relationships with the community and work with them, and in that our uniform and our gun belts and our guns and all the tools that we have on our belts can be blurred and people can see us as people. I understand that takes a lot of work on our part and on my team, and I know and I hope you guys know that I'm dedicated to that, and I know that my team's dedicated to that. It takes a very special type of deputy to work in Isla Vista. It takes one that is community oriented. It does take one that can talk to people. And so we are striving to work past some of those issues. And I do get what everybody's saying, and I don't have all the answers, but I am working towards that ultimate goal. And I do appreciate your guys' support with some of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Catherine has a question.
Director Flaherty, if you get a question.
Hi, yes. Well, first of all, thank you, Lieutenant Morris, for coming tonight. I really appreciate the presentation. I'm definitely really happy to hear about the expansion of the Restorative Justice program. I think it's a really important program. I've talked with a lot of people who've gone through it, and they have really positive experiences. And so hearing that will be expanded to so many other things makes me really excited about the future of that program. I just had a quick question on the flyers that you were handing out, just mainly in the, like, what situations they're used in. Like, would they be given pretty much anytime there's an open container, or are there situations where you would skip education and go straight to a citation? I guess just a little more on like how these are going to be used.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the beginning of fall orientations, the beginning of the school year, these will be primarily handed out. Where I do predict that we may run into issues is if the students try to fight, the students try to run, or the students lie about their name or age or something like that. So we're another piece of this that I did not mention. We are going to have booths out in Isla Vista during Parents Week and the first week of instruction at school, and we're going to be educating and trying to talk about some of these things with the student population and it's kind of on the left one over here with the green part. Don't run, don't fight, don't lie about your name or date of birth, because those tend to be some of the angles that get the students in a little bit more trouble. So that'll be the main part. However, throughout the year, my vision is even if a student was to receive a citation, this still would be handed out to them. But education is going to be the main focus during the fall orientation period, which, like I said, goes through up to Halloween.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Director Flaherty. I want to add that I appreciate the presentation, and I appreciate the the direction that we're heading towards education, I think that that is just such an important tool. And I think what you'll find, and what maybe you have already found as you've embarked on this journey, is that there's a lot of people that just don't know a lot of the things that are on this flyer. And obviously that's why we have to do education. It's kind of self-explanatory. But I think for all of us that do this work that relates to whether it's what you do in law enforcement or whether it's what we do in government providing services, is that being able to effectively communicate and break through with a lot of people about things that are like this can be very tedious. And so I appreciate the fact that IVCO Patrol is starting to do this and in coordination with UCPD. And I'm also very happy to hear about the expansion of the Restorative Justice program citations and what's being covered under that. I think that's a really huge deal. And thanks to everyone who's been working on that. I think you've definitely heard the concerns that I have and other board members have just about more broadly the strategies that get used and how they can sometimes, in our opinion, I think, serve to try to break some of that trust that I know you're trying to build. And I think that this, with the education, is definitely a step towards helping to build that more trust, and agree that, you know, the overeducation, I think, is where we might run into some challenges. So thanks again for the presentation, Lieutenant, and thanks for listening to our perspectives.
Absolutely. I really appreciate all the perspectives, and they're duly noted, and I'll see what I can do.
All right, thank you. I'll also open it up for public comment. Are there any public comments on this item? Go ahead, Director Toplick.
I guess I feel very stimulated about this whole cliff safety issue. And if it's not exactly a law enforcement focus, I mean, I wonder, should it be a CSD focus, that, you know, there's a campaign about that, you know, people coming into town are made aware that if you're intoxicated, you shouldn't be anywhere near the cliffs, and that, you know, we've had this many deaths and, you know, this many terrible accidents, and, you know, anybody should be just triggered that if they're not sober, they shouldn't cross that line, because it's very, very dangerous.
I think that is an important component. I will share, I think Jonathan will update later in the meeting during his report about some of the efforts that law enforcement and county fire are undertaking on some of those issues. But I agree. I think that.
But would we ourselves have a role to play in that?
I think that our role, as always, is helping with the education and helping to provide that information to people. Director Freeman.
I definitely agree with that. But I would even go a little bit further by going a little bit lighter. By, you know, it's not just people who are intoxicated who shouldn't be crossed that line. It's really dangerous the other side of that line. And I think the big thing that people don't appreciate is that the cliff is deteriorating. I think that's the big thing to actually like teach people, is that, you know, just because there's a cliff there doesn't mean that you can go up to the edge of it. If you go up near the edge of it, it's going to collapse. So I definitely agree. With
well, I mean, if nobody else is making a focus of that, it seems like we should.
Well, and I'll mention, I may have misspoke. It is a focus. It's just not a law enforcement issue. And so we are taking steps. We're working in many entities, including Jonathan has been deeply involved in a lot of these meetings, aspects of UCSB and other community oriented groups are working on this, but a lot of it has to do with the most part with a lot of the landlords that have properties on the coastline. And so we're trying to get a lot of their involvement, especially for events like Deltopia, where it seems to be a very scary problem, especially for me. But we are working on it. So if I misspoke, I apologize, but it is a collaborative effort. It's just going to take a lot of work and a lot of coordination.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments from our board? All right, well, thank you for the presentation, Lieutenant. we'll look forward to updates in the future about how the approach in the campaign has been going.
Thank you, board. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Now we're going to move to our item 4.4, discussion on Isla Vista move out.
Awesome. So it's good we moved this item anyways, since Jenna is now going to be here and working a lot on this issue with us. So I guess we're just going to do a recap of what we did before, mainly this year, and then it's just a discussion of ideas that we can start getting work on for next June, because it'll come faster than we think. So a couple things that we did this year. Our staff, Sydney, Maya, and Carly, worked with Viviana at the gift sale to organize a move out community meeting to do education, also to hear from people on their issues during move out, and to give out some things like move out boxes that were a huge hit and we're definitely going to do again. We did a lot of online promotion, lots in the attachments. You see the different kinds of Instagram posts and ads that we posted to give people tips on what to do, just information where to call. We had a website published that laid out how to dispose of all your waste and just the process and the dates that are important to know. And then we also worked with the county. They do a letter to all the property owners every year, and we worked a lot with them this year to help get the language in there really good to match the community issues. And it includes a lot of it includes the gift sale, for example, which it wasn't included previously in our mediation program. So we did a few of those things, and then just some of the things to highlight that came up in the meeting that we hosted were we asked residents who did attend, and we had maybe like about 10 to 15 people who did show up. We asked them, what's the hardest part about move out? How can we make it more sustainable? And what resources do you need? And so some of the answers that were given was finding storage in between leases is what causes a lot of the dumping of things, because you just have nowhere to go. So finding some sort of temporary storage option, lack of space. I guess that's kind of related to the storage, but people just had a lack of space to put things. A lot of leases end on 10 a.m. the Saturday of finals week and or graduation day. So that includes the dorms that end that day too. So all the dorms around town are also moving out that same weekend. The lease gaps again kept coming up as a big issue, and how do we, because there needs to be a lease gap, but how do we work around that? And then the interim housing that is available for people can be pretty expensive. The official sources that someone could just get a motel, but there are official sources like the IVCSD, and those were noted as being pretty expensive. People wanted more options to donate supplies, and the gift still does do a lot of it. They want more help in education and recycling large items, like things like mattresses or TVs. Marburg does come to pick them up, but sometimes they can be, trashed before they're even recycled. So there was just asked for more help with that. Furnished housing is something that has, I think we've discussed it before, one of our past retreats is a cool idea, but that's something that came up is what if it was more like the dorms where the mattress was just there and it was sealed in a antibacterial cover, and you can switch that out every year. So that means I don't have to buy a mattress and throw it out. And then there were ideas, can we use UCSB space to help store items? There was a request by people to add more dumpsters onto DP and ones with lids so that people could, if the ones at their home overflow, they can take it somewhere else. And then people asked to have more mass texting to get resources information on move out, because we did ask them, how would you hear about all this stuff? It is the busy time of the year, hard to get information. So mass text was brought up as one option. So that's kind of what we heard about. I want to turn it over to Maya or Sydney, who were there, to bring up anything else that you heard or that we've been talking about. And then I want to see what you all are thinking about. I don't think they've got anything to bring up. They didn't unmute. Oh.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if Maya was going to chime in. I mean, honestly, I think you covered it really well, and that just the updates from what we heard at the community meeting, and I'm looking forward to kind of carrying that over next year. But all of this honestly is just helpful to even prepare for move-in, which is what we're doing right now. So kind of taking all of this into account as we prepare for that. But no, I think you covered it really well.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the presentation. Any questions from the board? Director Topliff.
I was very surprised to hear in relation to move out, how all the leases end at the same time, and it's such a terrible time too. I mean, it just seems outrageous to me. And it also seems like not smart in that, you know, you have all this energy then for painting and cleaning up, and so competition for resources. And I mean, it just seems like if there was some way to negotiate, that there was some amount of staggered, you know, dates on those. I mean, it just seems like a terrible monopoly that everybody's in collusion to really create terrible problems for the people who live here.
Director Freeman.
I mean, there also is the other problem, which is that if your lease is up, you know, now, and then somebody else's, you know, lease is not up for 2 months later, then you can't actually like switch into their apartment. Like essentially, like the way I always describe it is that every year everyone in Isla Vista plays musical apartments. And everyone like is around December is looking at what other apartment they want to move into the next year, and they can all switch. And if everyone's got everything staggered, then you essentially can't. You show up, you want to start taking classes, and so you show up in September, and well, there's only a small number of apartments that show up at that point. There are other people who are trapped in an apartment lease for a long period of time. You can stagger them slightly through the summer, but even there, it's like it's this ability to like, there's actually a massive efficiency, I would almost claim, for we solve move in and move out as this massive week-long thing. Everyone knows that that's what's going to occur. I know, even like I don't even move, but it's actually kind of convenient in my apartment that like I know that that's the week that all of the property managers are going to be sending out all of their repair people, and they come and they do a once over of the entire building. And I just know it was not that long ago that it came in and they started analyzing, okay, we replace that, because we're doing the other two apartments at the same time. And then they just go through and they replace everything. And yeah. The other thing, who was it that made the, like, not like a specific person, but I'm sorry, what was that a survey, or was that like feedback on the furnished apartments?
No, just during our meeting, it was a comment that came up.
Yeah. So my understanding, for what it's worth, is that the people who have furnished apartments end up getting convinced by the property management companies that they can actually get more in rent, or easier, like find renters easier if they switch from furnished apartments to non-furnished apartments. My apartment, for what it's worth, when I moved into it, was a furnished apartment. And I did a tour of the apartment first. And the person there was an individual landlord who was very proud of all the furniture, and she let me in to do a tour, and the people who were living there let me in to do a tour, and she stayed outside. As soon as the door closed, the first thing they said was, okay, so you're probably wondering where we hid all the furniture, so let me show you. And he started showing me, like, in this closet, if you take this thing and you put this thing like that, because they wanted their furniture. And people have different layouts that they want, even like mattresses. Some people want to like stack bunk beds in there. Some people want to have like a queen bed. Some people want to like essentially like change out the amount of space in their room that they're allocating towards bed versus allocating towards desks and various things. And so it's a really complicated problem to go from like to try to pre-furnish all the apartments, because then you start falling into niches. It's like, well, this apartment is something that only people who like this kind of color of desks and various things are willing to utilize. Whereas if it's not furnished, then it's like, okay, well, it's a blank slate. My property manager, my landlord eventually got convinced by the property managers and her son and everything that this furnished thing wasn't going to work, and that in fact, why are you even storing all this old furniture? Let's just let them throw it away if they want. And now my apartment is not my apartment, but like my apartment complex is a non-furnished complex.
Director Flaherty, I think you had a question.
Yes, I did. Thank you. First of all, I want to give major props and thank you to staff, so Maya, Sydney, Carly, Jonathan, for all your work on Move Out, especially the section on our website too. I sent that to so many people during Move Out. It compiled resources so well, and I think it was incredibly useful. So that and the community meeting as well, I thought it went really well, received some great feedback. So major props to staff and all community partners too. I think it's really important, the work that everyone was doing. I just have a general question, and this probably isn't even the right place to ask it, but I would really love to hear how the give sale went. I don't know if there's any information on that since we didn't run it directly, but I would really love to hear about that. And then I also had mentioned this at the community meeting, but I'm definitely in favor of working possibly with the university for more storage. Maybe that's using classrooms that aren't going to be used for the next 2 weeks or so, using those for storage if that would be an option. So exploring those routes, I think, could be really useful in the future. So I would just love to see if that's possible at all. And yeah, I think those are all my comments right now. But thank you.
And just to answer you, we don't have the numbers on the gift sale yet, but I think Viviana was on vacation for a bit after it ended. So we just saw her for the first time last week. So I'll try to get that.
Thank you.
I will share anecdotally as a volunteer and a customer at the gift sale that it looked like it was very busy, that there were many items. I do know that I also heard reports that the food collection that the Compost Collective was involved in was a big success. Carly, can you share anything about that?
Carly's not on the call today.
Oh, got
it was a huge success, and we took that over from the gift sale because they weren't able to do it the same way anymore. So Carly was personally doing it herself a lot of the times because our employees are taking their own finals and graduating. So it did go really well. I don't have the numbers on that right now either, but it's a good model for the future for sure.
Well, I'm sure there's some pretty high numbers because they were filling these huge crates with all sorts of just dry food and cans that people had left over. So yeah, I'm really glad that we got to plug into that in that way and help out. Any other questions from the board? Well, I'm super heartened to hear just about all the education we're able to do this year to help get the resources out there through the webpage. And I think that it's just important to have all that information in one place about the different resources that are available. And it's really cool to hear that people liked boxes. We've learned something new. And it's intuitive, right? I feel like I never had boxes, but I never needed to move either. So I have a question, a question and a comment. One thing that was mentioned, but maybe not in much detail, is the county's role in all this. And I understand that there was a new employee this year. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. So the county for a long time had someone named Brad Spencer who was kind of directly overseeing move out, and he retired last December. And they haven't picked a final person to replace him yet. And what we learned, so I didn't mention this, but we had a debrief meeting with IVRPD and ourselves in the county. Director Topov was there. And they said that they were trying to pick between two different people on who's going to replace Brad Spencer. So one person had been like in the rotation, and then we met the other person who was in the rotation. And I'm not sure when they're going to make the decision though. But they are going to have a more permanent person. But we worked with Carlisle Johnson for now, who's that person's supervisor, to just get the message out to the landlords this year. But yeah, it wasn't the same as before because there is the transition going on.
And as a follow-up to that, do either of you happen to know if part of that person's role is ensuring compliance with the ordinances about how many trash cans you have to have for different properties? Because I know it's different depending on what your zoning and occupancy is.
It definitely came up as something, but it's something, me and Jen have been talking about is we need to monitor that over the year and see like the problem houses and see who's overflowing, and then let the county know about that, and then they can take some more action with the property owners themselves. But the county was pretty hesitant to use the fines that they're authorized to put in place for lots of different reasons, but they're just hesitant to put those fines on the property owners.
Got it. Well, that's good to know. And maybe it just needs to start with education, because I know, I think we've all seen, and I'm assuming that that's the comments that were made at this meeting, a house on Del Playa that has 15 or 16 people living in it, and they have, one or two, regular size, whatever it is, 80-gallon trash cans.
Right.
And it's just, that's not sufficient when you have, an apartment complex that is very much a multifamily, dwelling.
Yeah.
So, and I would have to venture to guess that many of those places are not following the law as it is. So, and Catherine alerted me that I think Maya had something to mention. If you're on Zoom and you're on staff and want to talk, please just butt in, because we cannot see who has their hands up on Zoom.
Yeah.
So, but go ahead, Maya.
Yeah, I went ahead and dropped it in the chat too, just because good flow of conversation, didn't want to interrupt. But we actually did hear from Viviana today that Carly collected almost 1 ton total of food donations. And a lot of that she did independently. So pretty awesome. As far as like the whole gift sale, I don't have a ton of like exact information on that. Wasn't our topic of conversation today, but we did learn that and it was pretty awesome. So just wanted to give a little shout out to our good work. So
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. That is amazing. And having seen it, I'm not surprised whatsoever, because it was a lot of food. Any other comments or questions from the board? Go ahead, Jen.
I will say that, yeah, the overflowing trash cans is a big thing I want to focus on. I'd like to make a chart to record where the overflowing trash cans are, because it's a huge problem. And Jonathan brought up to my attention that a lot of the times it'll be so overflowed you can't close the lid, and then the pelicans and raccoons get in there. So yeah, it's essential to have the right amount. And during move out, maybe we need more. I think that the furnished apartments is an interesting idea. Maybe something like that we could play off of it, but students like to, or residents like to decorate their apartment in their own style, I think. I really think that if we had somewhere to put all of these usable items, as we've been talking about, so that when people move in to their new apartment, they can then go and choose from those items. So essentially kind of like the gift sale, but maybe a couple weeks or a few weeks later when people are moving into their new places. That would be just awesome. I mean, I'm going to move into a new place soon, and I wish that I could go back in time and drive around the streets and take the things that I thought were cool in that moment, but I just couldn't at the time because I didn't have a place to live. So if we could somehow partner with UCSB to store stuff like that, or maybe just keep thinking of where we could store, that would be awesome. And I also want to try to partner with some nonprofits. Maybe we can have people sort different items. Like I know animal shelters need blankets or things of that nature. And people can put them out in specific containers or areas, and then volunteers from the nonprofits can go around and collect those items. I just want to try to think of ways that we could source all these items to the people who need them, because a lot of them are needed by someone. It's just about getting them to those people.
Thanks for sharing that. So many great ideas in there. And it made me think of something that I spoke with Viviana about, which is trying to help build up the capacity so that they can perform and advertise that they will perform like pickups of different items, which, excuse me, which they do already do now upon request, but they don't really advertise it too much because they are worried about the capacity to have enough volunteers to go out and get items. So I think that that would really be a game changer. I know for a lot of people, if they are going to call someone, the only people that they can call at this point is Marburg and ask for a large item pickup, and eventually it'll end up in the landfill. And we also know that, you know, during certain times of the year that can, or especially around move out, that can take some time, or maybe it doesn't end up happening, as we see with things that do get left on the streets. So I think that's a really cool avenue to explore. And glad you're exploring different things with in partnership with her. I know she's not here, but big shout out to her and OSL for just all the amazing work that they do around this time of year. Any other questions or comments from the board? I'll open up public comment. If there's any public comments on this item, please hit the raise hand button and we'll call on you. No public comment. All right, then I'll bring it back to the board. Any last thoughts? All right, well then we'll close this item and we will move to the last item under action, which is the salary and wage schedule update.
All right, well, this, I was supposed to have it at the last meeting as a follow-up from June, but this is exactly what we looked at in June. So we didn't have it for approval then. It was for discussion and it looked like it went over well, and it seemed, and the finance committee plugged these numbers into the budget and they all do fit into the budget neatly. So we are recommending approval of the new ranges for our ranges and steps for our positions. So any questions before?
Any questions from the board? Director Bertrand?
Thank you. Could you refresh the board? So we had the consultant that was helping us gather this information, and then we plugged in some of our own ideas. Can you refresh us just on
how we got here? Yeah, so the way we got here was we had a consultant hired, management partners, to do a study of our salaries compared to other public agencies. So we did that, and we also wanted to look at how do our raises work, how do our cost of living increases work. So we wanted to look at the salaries themselves, but also like the system and how they worked. So they did that. We reviewed all of that through our policy committee and our finance committee. And at our last board meeting, we looked at this, which is it's the representation of the results. It's not all the results. There's also a policy that's going to be approved as well, that I'm still waiting on the final copy. But this result is the new ranges. So we were very much, we were significantly lower than other agencies for similar work. So this is getting us in line more with them, especially for our program manager positions. And then we also instituted steps to each one. So now each position has a set way on how you get a raise. So you'll get 3 raises, and then you'll get a one-time bonus after that. So if you are still performing well, you can get the bonus instead of the ongoing cost. And then like it says right here, we'll do a COLA on July 1st of next year, and every year thereafter, as determined by the board. It could be 8%, 1%. We did 7.5% this past year. And we'll base that off inflation and other information, and then make a decision in March that goes into effect in July. And so that's easy for our budget. And then for the general manager, there won't be a range, and that'll be something that's just negotiated regularly. And that's how all the other public agencies do it. So that'll get us in line with that. So yeah, that's where we're at. And then this also does include our hourlies. And just to note, I mean, we had them all still as 15 last time, but just from the discussion, it looked like there was support to bump them up. So that's what I did.
Great, thank you.
And so the question is, does the board adopt the salary schedule, or do we just adopt a policy that sort of enacts what the salary schedule is?
So this will be in our policy. So by adopting this
in the policy.
Yeah, by adopting this, it's actually 2 separate things. So
okay.
We've had a salary schedule in our policies from last year. It was very simple, just 2 columns, like title and then 65 to 75. So it was more simple. But that was what was our policy, and that's what was in our policy manual. So I'll put this in a different format once it goes into the, it won't have like the current, like the old information, for example, but yeah, this is what it'll be in our policies. And then separately will be like the narrative that you guys got last time that kind of breaks down how this works. So, but they are two separate things.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions for the board?
I should mention what I'm going to do with this. So I would like to make these effective July 1st with the new budget, because we do have annual reviews for our employees now, like 1-year reviews where these raises come into play. So by making it effective July 1st, I can more easily, not all the rate. One of them is July 2nd, is the annual review, and the raises do go into effect on that person's 1-year day. Another one is on August 1st. So by making it July 1st effective, then we can fairly do those annual reviews and raises.
Got it. So is that something that we need to put into a motion?
Yes, please.
All right. Would anyone like to make that motion? Director Bertrand?
I move that we approve an updated salary and wage schedule for IVCSD employees effective July 1st, 2022.
All right, motion made by Bertrand. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Topliff. And I'll open up public comment. Any public comment on this item?
Yep.
All right, bring it back to the board. Any final thoughts? Director Bertrand?
And I see we have our assistant district counsel on the line. Are we good with how we did that motion?
Yes, the motion is fine as long as none of the director salaries are changing at this point, which I don't think that they are. We should be good to go.
Thank you.
All right. So motion made by Bertrand, seconded by Topliff. I think we'll go to a roll call vote.
Director Brandt?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Topliff?
Yes.
Clarity?
Yes.
Bertrand?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes. All right, motion passes. Now we're going to move to reports. So first, do any board members have reports they'd like to give? Director Freeman.
I was walking past here earlier today and I ran into somebody that apparently we have working on sound baffling. It's not about that. That's the agenda's coming. Apparently he noted that the water gutter, not funneling, is like the drain seems to no longer actually drain into the ground since the guys from the county put up the big shade thing. Maybe it seems like they like ripped out all the concrete right in front of the drain, replaced everything. Now he doesn't think the drain actually drains.
Just to give you an update, we do know, and I'm going to update this, or Spencer might too. We did meet with the county about the 500,000 they allocated to do improvements at the building, and one of the projects is a new drain right where the garage doors are. So Carrie was there too. We were all there, and so was Maya. So
this is the one that comes from the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're going to put a drain like right in front of the doors, and so that, the drain that comes down should aim into that in the future, hopefully.
Okay.
Hopefully.
All right.
I think that's how the design will go, but they do know that there's a drainage issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Director Freeman. Any other reports from the board? Director Bertrand.
Yes, I'll mention some of us were able to participate in the Voter Registration Volunteer Coalition, which is a nonpartisan great initiative from UCSB that results in UCSB usually having the highest number of registered student voters of any school in the country. And they just kicked off their season. It was really inspiring to join them again after years of not doing that because of the pandemic. But that really got me excited just about how we can get more people engaged with our district this coming year. And I'm excited for how we can work with Sydney and the community engagement team to just figure out new ways to plug new community members in. and looking forward to supporting that.
Thank you for that, Director Bertrand. Yes, it was pretty fun to be back out there helping to register our neighbors. Any other reports from members of the board? I will share first. I had the opportunity to join Carly and the Compost Collective crew at one of their outreach events recently last Monday. It was an event where they were helping people in the community build different compost mechanisms, but one is called a worm bin, which is a very specific type of compost that is kind of low maintenance. They helped me put one together, so I'm proud to say that I've got a compost bin at my place now, and it was just really cool to see people coming together and to get to chat with some of the dirt riders about the value that they see in the work that they are doing, and just hear how passionate they are about the program. You know, even though this is, you know, for many people, you might see it as just a job that you have in college. They're all very, very passionate about it and see the value that they're bringing to help our community be more sustainable. So it was really cool to meet all of them and hear from them. In addition to that, we, as Jonathan mentioned, had a meeting with County General Services about the allocation of the ARPA funding that was granted to the community center project. And I'll share some of the things that funding will be allocated to. The first is the sewage repairs, which I think we know have already happened at this point. It's kind of going to back fund those repairs. Additionally, flooring, so a seal for the flooring is something. Some HVAC improvements. The drainage was something that was mentioned as well. In addition to that, there's also ADA improvements to create path of travel, which is a big thing that we've talked about. The buildings are very much not in compliance with right now, so that is really huge. Also installing new hardware for the doors that is safety related, mortise type hardware, so that people can easily push a door open in an emergency. In addition to that, some other minor improvements to the exterior of the building to present like soil slopage, kind of boring stuff, but really important stuff to the structure of the building. And so it was good to hear that. And we also brought up some concerns that I know our staff has been feeling, and I know that UCSB staff that are our neighbors and tenants in this building have been feeling about some of the unsafe situations that have been happening recently. Do you want to tag team it and you share some of the information we heard?
No, you go.
No, okay. I was like, I'm getting tired of talking. So they shared with us, Supervisor Hart was very vigorously advocated for us to be able to have on-site security on the premises. And Jonathan was mentioning to me before the meeting that that security has been planned to start, and we're hoping it's starting soon. That will be in effect for basically the 12 hours from 7 to 7 at the building to be on site and to keep people who are using the space safe, because we know that there's so much important things happening in this building. And it's our staff, but it's also the healthcare that people are getting at the clinic. It's also the psychological services that people are getting at CAPS upstairs. And it's just really important that people feel safe. So just want to thank the county for making that a priority, because I think we heard people loud and clear that it's a really unsafe situation right now.
And Supervisor Hart was very strong that this was his highest priority, and that he felt like there was no situation like this that had been allowed to occur anywhere else on county property anywhere, and that it was not at all acceptable to him that it would be happening here, and that General Services needed to do whatever it took to get control of the situation.
Yes, I think that's very well said. So I think that is the end of my report. And so we will now, I'll add one more thing too. So Kirsten is not feeling well and wasn't able to make it tonight, but a couple of days ago, we had the chance to go and just drop into the community center and visit a group of the Santa Barbara Community Churches that provides meals to people experiencing homelessness on a weekly basis out of the space. And we were just hearing from them what their feedback was using the space, and they were just very appreciative. They're very complimentary of our staff, Maya, who's been working with them on reserving the space, and we're excited about the improvements that have been made with the new shade structure as well. And it was just really cool to see a group of people in the community wanting to make a difference that could we could help them do that. So big shout out to them. Director Bertrand.
Thank you. And that reminded me, one evening last week, I was walking by the community center and I saw a whole crowd of people walk out after yoga. So I want to give a shout out to Maya. It's great to see just so many people using that space and so many different programs meeting different needs. It's really exciting.
Thank you so much, both of you, for making comments about the community center. I am glad to see that even in the summer, in our more quiet times, like, it is still being utilized for so many different groups in a positive way. And I'm really looking forward to showing all of you, well, I guess you'll see it, but all the fun, exciting things coming up in fall that we're starting to put in place. So thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move to reports from standing and ad hoc committees. Any committee reports? Don't know if Finance Committee has met since our last meeting, so I don't think we have anything new to share.
We might have met last week or the week before.
No.
I don't know. Time's weird. We're meeting next week.
My timeline is fall.
Yeah, we're meeting
It's
next
here to organize numbers and columns and rows and make sure everything balances out on the job, on your behalf.
Any other reports from committees? Okay, so then report from district council.
Nothing from me tonight. Thank you. Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you too. Thanks for being here. Now report from general manager.
Cool. I'll start off by turning over to Sydney for any community engagement updates.
Sure, thanks, Jonathan. I have a few STEP grant updates among some other things, but we have been working with K2UA to coordinate focus groups, just to gather even more, concentrated feedback around the Isla Vista mobility plan. And we have about 30 people signed up for those as of last week. And in a few weeks, I'm actually going to be heading down south to accept that award that we won. So that's super exciting. And then we can share the video that really just showcases all the work that we've done. So that was really exciting. We worked on that over the summer. We also have a subcommittee that's been meeting that's been focusing on event planning. So we plan to host more just concentrated events to try to test out some of the ideas that we heard that people would like to see. So we opted to do that instead of the open streets event, which I've brought up in previous meetings. This way we can really, go to the specific locations of where the issues that we've heard and actually try out these treatments. So I've been working with Fiona a lot on those over the summer. We have meetings with the county and MTD set up to kind of start planning those for when school is back. And today our team met with Viviana and IVRPD to talk about just ideas for move-in. So we'll be tabling at the involvement fair. And we also all agreed to host the IV tours again. So those will follow after. And one of the stops will be at the community center, and each of us will have a table set up for each of our individual services. So we'll have a table for the compost collective, for community center events and volunteer opportunities, for the mobility plan, for free rental housing mediation program. So all those different things just to kind of get everyone aware of the services that we provide, safety stations, all of them. And then I also recently connected with Jen Bertram to kind of just talk about ways to get connected with landlords and property owners in IV. And she shared that the best way would be to send an email from us. So that went out on Monday, and it just really compiled all of the services that we provide, our different move-in and move-out resources, like our webpage, the move-out meetings and different community meetings we've hosted, different articles we've written on tenant rights, and checklists on best practices of how to be, you know, a good roommate, a good tenant, a good landlord. So shared all of that, and I've already been getting inquiries from different people, so that's been really helpful. And Jen also invited us to attend their first meeting in the fall, so that'll be great. We can kind of meet with different people there. And what else? Oh, lastly, just even though it's August, we are already starting to connect with different partners on Halloween planning. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. And then I was going to give Carly as well another shout out on the community collab days for the Compost Collective. It was excellent. And I don't know, Carly, if you want to mention anything about it right now. She just joined, but yeah, it was an excellent event, and I hope all our services do something like it. Carly, do you want to say anything?
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, it was super fun. Thanks so much for coming. And yeah, it was, I think, very much a super awesome try. Definitely not like a huge turnout, but like that's almost not what we were gauging the excess by, just like how it ran, and it ran super smoothly and nicely. So we're super excited to do it in the future. And the people who did come enjoyed it a lot and heard about it word of mouth. So we'll just continue kind of spreading the word. So super awesome. Thanks so much, Jonathan.
Thank you. I got some finished compost to put in the plant. I think it was great. You met Jenna today, so Ivy Beautiful is going to start going well. We've been doing training, and job post out soon, and yeah, well, more updates next time. We're still getting going. Safety stations, I'm going to be working on the third location and on the new contract, and we'll get that settled pretty quickly. There's not going to be a major change this year. And they're supposed to launch around August 26th. So that'll be the first, that's the usual weekend planned to launch during the year. So that's going well. I'm still trying to get the investigator presentation scheduled. So I put out another feeler earlier this week to see when that can be. Yeah, like Director Freeman mentioned, we are working with someone, Maya and myself, on the acoustics in the community center. It is, you know, it was a smaller project, and now it's seeming like there is a good amount that needs to possibly be done, but I'm hoping to get a quote from them next week that we can look at a closed board meeting to see what we would be interested in doing. But it is, the issue just keeps coming up, and we did hear last time, we do want to solve it. So one good news though is this structure, the shade structure construction is all done as of today. So they did put the dirt back and they removed the fence. So we're back there, but we did get a almost bigger problem happened today too, which is the garage door came off the hinges, and part of its structure started bending and almost cracking. So yeah, it got stuck halfway through, and then we were able to get, we called the county. I give them huge props at 4:51, and they had people here by 5:15 to help us get it down. So we were able to get it down. There's like a small crack about this big still at the bottom, so it's gonna have to be open overnight. But and garage door company will be here in the morning to fix it. So yeah, pretty bad situation. Just happened out of nowhere. It was being, you know, it was open to test acoustics and then closed, just clicking the buttons, and yeah, it just happened. So some not great news. We've had some delays still on getting our deliverables from KTUA for the STEP grant. So it's just, I just want to say I've learned a lot on how we can make our contracts better with consultants in the future, like how we can put in some delivery expectations for work that's being done. Some of this was due in March. It is now August. So I've learned a lot on how we can, this is the first year we've had a lot of contracts and consultants. So I think we can make a lot of adjustments now in the future. We have a meeting set on the 29th with county, all the relevant department heads, our county supervisor, county CEO's office, and Dixon, our consultant. And so we're going to meet that day to hear more from the county on what they want out of the study and partnership funding. So we are on a little bit of a hold until we can figure out that funding, but we hope to do it at that meeting. And Julie Dixon is doing a lot of prep meetings right now between now and August 29th with the department heads and supervisor's office and such, just to learn more from them directly and be more prepared. So when we go in, we all are on the same page. So yeah, we're in a pause right now, but they are getting all the things needed to get started anytime. So that's what we met with them and kind of got prepared to start, but we're just waiting now for the money to become available. We still haven't heard anything from UCSB on parking study funding. You heard from Sydney, we have started to talk about Halloween with others. I think we'll bring something at the next board meeting to get the board's input on what we would want to do for Halloween. And we put aside a good amount of funds this year so we can directly work on it. And then a couple just things to note. So there's 2 parcels in Isla Vista that aren't getting taxed this year. They came off our tax roll for the sewage tax. I think it's probably because of renovations going on, but it was just something to note where our sewage tax is going to go down a small amount, a couple $1,000, because 2 properties came off. We still have the pause on the Survivor Resource Center because of the encampment issues. I wanted to just remind the board that my evaluation is coming up, and I owe you a memo from our consultant on how to do that, and so I haven't gotten that yet to get it to you. So we'll do that soon, and also going to be doing all the staff evaluations this month too. So it's evaluation month for everybody, and I'm going to try to take some of my makeup time off around Labor Day, but I'm not sure yet. Either way, I have like 5 to 10 days to still use by the end of the year. So I'm trying to figure that out, but Labor Day time seems like a good time. And then just one last thing, which is we closed out the work with management partners. So we're going to get a final bill soon. And I'm waiting on those 2 final items, which is the policy and the GM memo. But after that, we're all done with management partners, and we'll start moving on towards a permanent employee to do our administrative and operations that we've talked about but haven't taken action on yet. And then one last thing, actually I missed it, is that I met with this group called Get Connected Santa Barbara, and they are doing a lot of work in providing internet affordability resources and more in town. So they wanted to talk to me about getting residents $30 off their internet and $100 towards buying a new device to help make the internet connectivity better. But they were also interested in hearing about like what me and Director Freeman have done in getting the Isla Vista Wi-Fi network set up. And they were really interested in seeing how they can support that work to provide some more public internet services in Isla Vista. So we'd like to see where that goes, but it's a group with new energy, and they wanted to have our involvement as a local community. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Excellent. Thanks for that report, Jonathan. Lots going on. Any questions from the board? All right, not seeing any questions on Zoom. I'm thinking that's a no. We're gonna work on figuring out how to get us better sightline on what's going on. Thank you for that report, Jonathan. So that brings us to the end of our agenda. Our next meeting will take place on August 26th, right here in the community room. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Made by Freeman. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Topliff. Any comments? All right, let's do roll call.
Brent?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Topliff?
Yes.
Bertrand?
Yes.
Aguilar? Yes. Flaherty?
All right, motion passes. Thanks, everyone.
Cool. Good meeting. 2 hours, less than 2 hours.